with Broken Ground, and today I have a special guest with me, Cheryl Moore-Gough. And Cheryl, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with me.
Thank you so much for having me, Kareen. This is going to be fun.
Great. And so for those of you who don't know Cheryl, she's actually a local famous guest expert that we have on here. She has a BSc in horticulture and a master's in plant science. And she's taught many classes at Montana State University, including vegetable production, and has retired as the State of Montana Extension Horticulture Specialist and Montana Master Gardener Instructor and Coordinator. Cheryl has authored or co-authored 7 gardening books, including The Complete Guide to Saving Seeds and Rocky Mountain Vegetable Gardening Guide, and numerous Montana State University Extension, yard, and garden informational publications, and many, many magazine articles. So I feel so fortunate that you were able and willing to do this with me. So I have Cheryl on because we're going to talk about early season seed saving tips. Cheryl, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on is, of course, seed companies right now are being overwhelmed with orders because of this pandemic and because of an increased interest in growing food. I'd love to get from you, before we get into kind of the details of how to save seeds, why save seeds?
Well, seed saving is really, it's a fun activity. It's a good family activity, but it also helps with the food security issues that we have in our country, even before the pandemic, and I'm sure that they will continue. That sometimes there are food shortages, and if you are growing your own food in your backyard, that seems to help quite a bit. And saving seeds even gives you a better anchor for those vegetables that you can grow in your yard. Also, it allows you to select seeds from the plants that do best in your yard. You may try 3 different squash, and one of them just really does well, and the other 2 not so much. So you save seeds from the ones who do well, or the seeds from plants that have the characteristics in your garden you like. The earliest tomato, the tomato that is the acidiest or the sweetest. So you get to pick from your own yard what's best. Also, you get high quality food when you grow your own vegetables, fruits, and when you save your seeds. Children are particularly of interest to me, and it's amazing to me how many children don't know really where their food comes from other than the grocery store. And so it kind of defines the cycle of life, where you grow a plant, you eat the tomato, but you save the seeds so you can have more tomato plants next year. And it really is a nice, elegant way to introduce your children to the cycle of life. So
Yeah,
there's a number of ways, reasons to be saving your own seeds.
I love that concept of participating more, in having a garden. You're participating more in, your food security. And of course, you're participating more in natural systems. But I do love that idea of kind of closing the loop for children, especially. That's wonderful. So I know that seed saving is kind of an intimidating subject that people, and it's a very broad subject. And some people, I think, you have the spectrum, right, of people that think that it's super easy, and then people that think that it is super hard. So one of the reasons that I wanted to do this interview was just to get people started in terms of not only thinking about seed saving, but started on maybe some of the easiest or the best bets when it comes to seed saving. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, sure. There are some vegetables in your garden that are going to be easier than others to collect seeds from. And there are different methods of collecting seeds. There's a wet, there's a dry, and that's just too involved for early season planning. So let's just talk about a couple of the easiest vegetables. Tomatoes comes to mind. A lot of people think that saving seeds from tomatoes is difficult or lots of steps are involved. When I have that first ripe tomato, I want to select the genetics for that early characteristic. So I'll pick that beautiful fresh tomato and take some of the seeds out, put them on a paper towel, and then eat the tomato. Yay, that both worlds. And just let those seeds dry. And so tomatoes, now you have to be sure that it's not a hybrid. It has to be, well, it doesn't have to be an heirloom, but you probably want to at least start that way. Also, some of the other easy to collect would be cantaloupes or muskmelons, because when that melon is ripe, those seeds are ready to be harvested and dried, just the same as with the tomato. Squash is very easy, although there are 4 different species of squash that we can grow in our gardens, and they will freely cross within the species, and some of them cross with other species. So you have to be a little bit careful if you're going to be saving seeds from squash.
So when
What
you're
else you are growing?
Yeah, so when you're talking about squash, Cheryl, are you talking about both summer and winter squash?
Yes, winter squash is the easiest to save from, because summer squash, let's back up. Winter squash is the easiest to save from because we eat winter squash when it is ripe. And I'm using ripe as in quotes. Summer squash we eat when it's unripe. And so in order to save seeds from summer squash, you have to leave them on the plant until they fully ripen, which for zucchini means the monsters that hide, um, and even further ripening. And with squash and cucumbers, the same thing. They have to get big, they have to get woody, they have to dry. And when you're letting that happen, that plant shuts down and won't put on any more fruit for you to eat.
Got it. Okay.
So,
So,
yeah.
okay, so that is a great thing to know. So we got our tomatoes. So just to clarify with tomatoes, I think a lot of people think they need to ferment them beforehand, ferment the seeds beforehand before they save them. But you're saying that you can just take those seeds, put them directly on a paper towel, and there you go.
Unless you have a known disease situation in your garden that is seed borne, there really isn't a reason to ferment or soak in water. I have done a couple of tests where we did the different seed treatments with tomatoes. There was absolutely no difference in viability or germination of those. And since I did that experiment, I have only just taken the seeds and put them on a paper towel. They will stick to the paper towel, but it's not going to hurt to plat a little piece of paper um, with your seed.
Right. Extra organic matter. That's
Sure.
great. That's great. So tomatoes is the first one. The second one uh, is winter squash,
Hmm. And
and then
beans and peas.
and beans and peas. So tell me, Cheryl, a little bit more about saving beans and peas.
Okay, saving seeds from beans and peas are quite different than saving from a tomato. As I said, there are wet methods and there are dry methods, and a tomato would be a wet method. For beans and peas, you have to let them completely mature on the vine. And so that means as long as you can leave them out in the garden without the birds getting them or the weather taking them, you need to leave them out as long as you can. If for some reason your pods aren't mature when the weather ends our season, you can pull up the plants from the roots, bring them inside, perhaps into your garage or your crawl space, and let them dry down further on the vine before you harvest them. And when I've harvested beans that are dry, they pretty much pop out of the shelf pretty easily. Or you can take a bucket and actually hold the plant upside down and kind of wrap it against the sides in order to free the beans themselves. You need to be careful to not nick the seed coat while you're doing this, because a bean seed or a pea seed with a damaged coat will not survive.
Right. Great. Great. That makes sense. So if you're doing beans or peas, what would you suggest that you have, you pick some to actually eat and then you leave some on the vine, or you have like a whole separate area where you have ones that you're going to save?
I would just pick some and leave some. You don't really have to have a dedicated space in order to do that. The only dedicated space would be if you don't want things to cross, but beans and peas are mostly self-pollinated.
Mhm.
They can cross, but they usually don't. It's because of the structure of the flower. So you really don't need a dedicated location for your seed saving for them.
Great. Great.
And spinach is also quite easy, um, but you have to be sure that you have male and female plants because only the female plants will make seeds. That's the only plant in our vegetable garden that has male and female plants
So
that
how
are
do you tell the
separate.
difference?
Well, you dig them up and you look at the roots, and the boy plants have blue roots and the girl plants have pink roots.
That is I was like, that is crazy, but that's not true.
So you have to wait until they bolt. And then there are good pictures that are available. The male plants are pointier, the female plants are rounder, and the flowers of the female plants are held in the axil. So if this is the main stem of the spinach plant and this is a leaf, this is where the flowers and the seeds will form on the female. And on the male, they will be held on it's called a peduncle, a little stem, and then there's a little ball. So
Okay.
they look very different once they've bolted. And before they bolt, you can't tell.
You can't tell,
Mm-mm.
right? So when you're talking about, so any other easiest or best bets in terms of saving seeds?
Those would be the ones that I would suggest people do it first.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
So tomatoes, winter squash, beans, peas, and spinach,
muskmelon if you can get
and
them to
muskmelon.
ripen. Yes,
Right, right, right. If you can get them to ripen here, right, in a
right,
cold climate. So,
right.
okay, that's great. How about peppers?
Well, peppers are kind of tricky because peppers, um, they need to be, that's one of the mistakes a lot of seed savers make is they harvest them before the plant is ready, before the fruit is actually ripe. And many peppers aren't really ripe when we eat them, when we consume them. They have to turn red. Um, Many of them do. And then you also have to, again, be careful about the hybrid situation. And if you pick a green pepper, a sweet pepper, and eat the pepper and save those seeds, they really aren't ripe yet.
Mhm.
And that's one of the biggest mistakes that new seed savers make. And that's harvesting the seeds before the fruit is really ripe.
Mhm.
For instance, eggplant. In order to save seeds from eggplant, that plant has to be ready to drop the eggplant on the ground in order to save seeds. So in our short season, that probably isn't going to happen.
Mhm.
Um, but harvesting those seeds, you usually wait until the fruit is ripe and then wait a couple more weeks before you harvest the seeds.
Right. And I guess that's something that's really important for people to understand is that, yes, we don't always eat what is the mature plant.
Yes.
Um, and I guess another thing that's important for first time seed savers to understand too is that you're almost kind of reserving certain areas of your garden where you're actually saving the seed, because it sounds like
Yes.
you want some maybe plant spacing, you want the spinach to bolt, and you want that zucchini plant to grow a big zucchini, but you're understanding that you're not going to get other zucchinis off of that plant necessarily.
Yeah. And one of the things that I do if I am um, having a garden that has both edible and for seed saving is I'll actually take a ribbon or something and tie it around the stem of for instance, squash that I want to be sure not to pick because when I get out into the garden, I get pretty enthusiastic about some of the vegetables. And so making sure that you identify them in advance. If you've hand pollinated anything, to be sure you have good pollination, then I use a ribbon or something, so I don't forget.
Yeah, great idea. Right, because we think we'll remember, but we don't.
No, we don't remember.
That's great. And as a reminder, we want people to have open pollinated seeds. And can you tell us a little bit more about that, why that is?
So open pollinated plants will come true, and that's a technical term, the next year if you save their seeds. So the tomato that you planted this year, if it's open pollinated, and if you save the seeds, you'll have the same tomato. If you plant the seeds from a hybrid, and if you look on the label, if you're buying a seed packet, the label will say F1, which is a first filial generation, which means it is a hybrid. And because of the genetics of that cross, which is a cross between two inbred lines, the progeny will not necessarily be the same as the plant you took it from. It might be better, it might be worse. Usually it reverts to the previous genetic code. When we won't go into genetics here, people's eyes glass over. But when you're starting to save seeds, I would suggest that you use open pollinated and not hybrid. In some cases it doesn't matter, but in many cases it does. So if you're just starting out, go with your open pollinated. And if you don't know how to tell, if it says heirloom, that's a good indication that it's open pollinated, but not all open pollinated plants are heirlooms. So that's general rule.
Great, great. So tell us a little bit more about kind of some of the mistakes that first-time seed savers can run into. I think you addressed a couple, but maybe address that a little more.
Yeah, the only other one that I would say that new seed savers could possibly have a problem with is if they save seeds from a plant that has a biennial life cycle. Now, let's take root vegetables, for instance, carrots, beets, parsnips. They take 2 years to fully develop a seed. So the first year, that biennial plant is making the delicious storage organ, the carrot, the beet itself. And all of the sugars of the plant, the energy of the plant is going down into that root. The second year, if you leave those in the ground, the plant will take those sugars and make the flower and the seeds, and that will use up the sugars that are stored in that storage organ to make seeds. Now, some people think that if their root vegetable makes a seed the first year, of a flower, if it bolts, like a carrot has a beautiful flower and it bolts and it makes seeds, they're in business, they didn't have to wait 2 years and they are excited. Don't do that, because what you're doing when you're saving seeds is perpetuating the genetics of the plant. And that plant that you save seeds from the first year is coded only to make seeds and not to make the delicious root that we really want that first year. So that's the only other. And if you're curious about which of the vegetables are biennial and which are annual, you can Google that, and it's very easy to find out whether you're looking at an annual or a biennial in your garden.
Great, great. Any other kind of common mistakes that early seed savers make?
Not really. There are different methods for saving seeds, as I said, but that's something that could be addressed, or you could Google that for later in the season. But as far as early season, you want to be sure that you get enough space in between your plants. If you're going to be saving seed, think about that when you are harvesting, so you can harvest and leave space in between the plants that are going to be going to seed, and not just take the whole row off and leave two. Um, it's actually a pretty straightforward process, Kareen.
Yeah, so other considerations when planting. So you want to make sure that there's enough space between the plants. Anything else? How about
So
that cross-pollination?
yeah, you want to be sure that there are plants that will cross and they'll outcross. Um, Corn is a crazy outcrossing plant and much too complicated for what we're going to do. So new seed savers don't typically try to save seed from corn, but spinach, if you happen to be living, or not spinach, excuse me, lettuce, if you happen to live near a vacant lot, or if you have prickly lettuce, which is a weed flowering in your neighborhood or nearby, they'll cross. And so, and they're wind pollinated. So it's not an insect that's doing the pollination. So you may get some pollen from prickly lettuce on your red sails, and it will make it inedible, but you won't know until you plant the seed and try and grow it out the next year. So if you're going to be saving seeds, there are some plants that are just fine to let them cross, and there are some that really are not. So another thing that you could do would be get a really good seed saving book, like the Complete Guide to Saving Seeds, which will tell you which plants will cross and how to be very careful about that.
Great, great. So let's talk a little bit about the, a question that I frequently get from people who have bought seeds, right? Or if they've saved seeds, how long do seeds last?
That's a super good question. There are charts that you can find online in really good seed saving books, but also, unfortunately, it's not consistent. And so different authors will say different durations. For instance, some authors will say, oh, the brassicas, you can save them for 3 years and then you might as well throw them away. I've planted 10-year-old brassica seeds and had no problem at all. So they are different. And it also depends on how they're stored. You want to store your seeds, whether they're saved or whether they're just extra from the previous year, cold, dark, and dry. And so those are the 3 considerations when you are storing your seeds. But there's a really good way that you can test your seeds easily to find out your germination rate. And it's called a ragdoll test. And even the professional growers do something like this to test germination. When you buy seeds, if you look on the package, it'll give you the germination rate. Well, the way they determine that is by doing something similar to this very easy test that you can do at home. It takes seeds, water, paper towel, and something to put them in. So what I have here is a ragdoll test of 4 different seeds. And you notice that I have dated it, and I have been very careful to label it, because you think you'll remember, you probably won't. But each one of these packets has 10 seeds, is my preference personally. And you just take those seeds, wrap them in a paper towel, moisten the paper towel, and then put it in a plastic, recycled plastic, of course, bag or a glass container. So then you do this, and then you just put it on your kitchen counter. Doesn't have to be in the light. It doesn't have to have anything done to it other than just let it sit. And after a week or so, you can open up the package, and I have a packet of seeds here. And then you can see how many of them have actually germinated and how many of them have not. So this is a 3-year-old package of purple bean seeds, and I used 10 seeds because statistically and with nice numbers, this is what I want to do. And I have four of them, 40%, have really nicely developed, try to put it behind something dark there. Uh, there's a nicely developed root. And then there's 2 of them, 20%, just barely coming out. So that's 20%. And the rest of them didn't germinate. So I know that if I'm going to be planting these seeds, I need to plant them more thickly or get new seeds.
Great.
And this is something that I do every single year with my seeds, just so that I know I don't want to put seeds, these bean seeds, if I space them at 6 inches, I'm going to have skips. And I want to maximize my garden space. And so I want to test the germination before I put them in the ground.
So in that case, you would just put a couple extra in the same spot.
Well, I wouldn't do that, but I would sow them more closely together.
Got
If,
it.
for instance, it's a 6-inch spacing, final spacing, I would do maybe 2 inches or 3 inches, depending on what your seed germination rate is. And some people, they don't want to mess with it. And so they buy new seeds. But I do have at least one in this particular test that has 0 germination, but I'm going to give it another week, because sometimes it takes a couple of weeks for some species to actually germinate.
Okay, so that was my next question is, how long would you wait before you knew that you had a very low germination rate?
I would wait a couple of weeks. I mean, for some of them, they're going to just spring forth immediately, and you don't have to do anything more than that. And some of them, they do take a little bit longer. I wait 2 weeks, but some of them are pretty obvious. There are some seeds that will form kind of a slimy coating. They will all imbibe, so they will all soak up water, but they won't necessarily put that radicle out, that first root. So soaking up water is not an indication of good germination. You want to watch for that root. But some of them actually make a slime coating when they're done. And you might as well just throw them away at that point in time. And it's actually quite obvious when they do make that.
Oh, that's great. That's good to know. So a great thing to do while you're inside.
I don't know about you, Kareen, but when I was a little girl, we did beans in jars with paper towel, and that was a great activity for children, because you could see, this is the same thing.
Yeah.
And so you could even set up your ragdoll test for your kiddos to enjoy watching their seeds sprout. Good indoor activity.
Yeah. I remember too, my mom used to just sprout bean sprouts to use. But it is something that you do as a child in grade school.
Yeah. And of course, if you really want to, you can eat your sprouts, but this is for a test. This is not for planting, unless you do it really close to planting time, and then you can plant them. But the idea is that these are not for planting in the garden when you do the ragdoll test.
Right. It's simply germination rate, so that you know what you're dealing with.
Yep.
Great. Any other considerations or tips and advice for first-time seed savers?
I think we've covered it pretty well, Kareen. Don't put fresh manure outside.
just a tip in general for gardeners.
Yeah. No, I think that we've covered it pretty well. Another thing you might want to do is get a really good vegetable gardening book.
Yes.
My late husband and I wrote this book because there wasn't anything like it. And we've been told numerous times that it has saved a lot of people a lot of mistakes in the vegetable garden. And there is some seed saving information in that book as well. But be careful when you pick your cultivars. Take good care of your plants, water them when they need to, watch them as they mature, and enjoy your garden.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So let's hold up both of those books again. So if you want to go more down, research more about seed saving, this book, the Complete Guide to Saving Seeds by Cheryl, and then the Rocky Mountain Vegetable Gardening Guide are both awesome resources, especially for people in our climates. And those are available for those who are local. Those are available where again?
Yeah, there are several local businesses in Bozeman who carry them. The Garden Barn carries them, Cashman Nursery does. Country Bookshelf has had them in the past. I haven't been in there lately, but they can certainly order them if they don't have them on the shelves. Um, those would be my best bets.
Great, great. And for those of you who aren't local, you can request it from your local bookseller as well.
Absolutely.
They can order them.
Yep.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. And if anyone has any questions for Cheryl, just be sure to pop them in the comments below and we'll be sure to get those answered. So thanks so much for watching and I hope to see you soon.